all set for Laguna Seca. It's round 8 of the 2024 INDYCAR Championship, and this great venue once again plays hosts. Let's change over to our commentary team.
This is the NTT INDYCAR Series. With live coverage of today's practice, this is the INDYCAR Radio Network.
Practice session number 2 before we go racing tomorrow, the Firestone Grand Prix of Monterey. Mark James, happy to have you with us this morning as we get ready to get to put the cars through the paces. Got an hour to get 45 minutes of practice in, and Davey Hamilton joins us now. And Davey, Scott McLaughlin led the way. Drivers continue to come to grips with the repave that took place 1 year ago. We had quite a few offs and drivers scratching their head a little bit, but Scott McLaughlin quickened at a minute 7:6.325. A good run and a good start to the weekend for Scott McLaughlin.
Yeah, this track's still outstanding. I mean, the 1 year aging, I think, has probably helped the track as far as being more competitive for all the competitors. You got to remember who's been fast here. Palou dominated a few years ago. You got Colton Hurd has been super fast here. McLaughlin's been fast, and then guess what? That's who we find on top of these speed charts. They're still faster no matter what this surface has done. Surface, though, is super smooth. You can tell it's the repave is really, really nice. Still a lot of grip, especially with these weather conditions, Mark. It's a little warmer today than it was yesterday, but the wind's way down and still very cool for this time of year.
How about the specifics on those weather conditions? We'll get that by welcoming in Michael Young.
Yeah, good morning, Mark James. I can say to you, this is Chamber of Commerce type weather here at the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. 71. We actually started the day at 66 ambient, so we're already up 5 degrees. The track temperature started at 88. It's already climbed over to 102 degrees, so everything warming up. But a picture-perfect, beautiful day as we get set for this second practice session for the NTT IndyCar Series. Also, a quick update for you. I talked to David Malukas before this session started to talk about that left wrist and see how it was doing. He was wearing a brace yesterday, and he said it was very difficult to turn to the left, that brace did not want to slide on those bigger left-handed turns, and he couldn't get it underneath his left leg, so he's trying a different brace. He said the wrist hurts a lot after the session is over, but he's trying something different to help him in the steering input in that number 66 car.
That season debut for David Malukas in that 66 car, and Davey Nolan Siegel also making his debut this weekend in the number 6 machine for Earl McLaren.
Yeah, 2 big steps for both those drivers, Mark. Means they're first with the team for Nolan and Siegel, and then the first race of the year, as you said, for Malukas. Both found themselves at the bottom of this timing scoring yesterday, but that's because this series is not easy. This series is so competitive and so many great teams and drivers. So when you just show up, even though you're the great teams and great opportunities, that doesn't mean you're going right to the top of the chart. So they have a lot of work to do, but they're with the right programs. They have teams that have confidence in them, and they just got to work it out.
Another driver who might be finding some level of comfort. We've been waiting for it, knew it would happen. It was just a matter of time. Pietro Fittipaldi, Davey, he produced one of his best outings of the season in the 75-minute session yesterday. He was 5th quickest for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan.
Yeah, looked really confident yesterday. You know, I just watched him walk around the pit area a few times and seen just the confidence in his face. Obviously, the car's good, and you know, needless to say, he loves this racetrack because he's been fast here.
Let's get some insight on that situation involving Nolan Siegel. Big news throughout the course of this week. Let's welcome back in Michael Young.
Yeah, good morning again, and Gavin Ward, team principal for Arrow McLaren Racing, joins us here. And what a wild turn of events these last couple of weeks had been. We saw, of course, Nolan Siegel, you're now driver in the number 6 with the Juncos Hollinger team. Now he's here, and it's just been a wild whirlwind. How did this whole thing begin, and how did it end up to where we are now?
Yeah, things got fast-forwarded for us for a little bit there. You know, obviously Nolan's been a pretty hot up-and-coming prospect in North American motorsports for a number of years now. So we've been keeping our eye on him, and you know, we were really looking at him maybe more as a 25 or even a 26 prospect, but really impressed with his composure, how he handled himself through the month of May. Really impressed with how he worked with United Autosports and getting his class win at Le Mans. But really what brought things together is, you know, we were looking at him for 25, and once he abandoned his NXT championship, it became pretty clear that if we didn't sign him up, someone else was going to. You know, it's a tough decision to have to make. It's the kind of decision you have to make when you're trying to look after the best interests of a 108-person team, and you're not going to make everybody happy. But pretty excited to get Nolan in here. Tough day yesterday with some issues. We were chasing down some data stuff on the engine side they weren't too happy with, so we spent a bit of time trying to diagnose that. Lost a bit of running, so just need to get some laps under our belt today and go from there.
How quickly did you and Zach talk about getting him into that car? Was it one of those instantaneous things once that announcement happened, or did you have this plan somewhat in place?
It came together pretty fast, and you know, once you decide, okay, well, he's our guy for next year. Well, why wouldn't you put him in now if he's available? You know, I think people will look around and be like, well, you wouldn't normally do that. Most people don't have that option. Usually, drivers are under contract to the end of the year, so it was an unusual circumstance, but. You want to set your. We've had through no doing of our own. Unfortunately, this year has been hugely disrupted on the driver's side on the 6 car. It's been a challenge. So, kind of regardless, we were stuck with a difficult situation of a rookie in the car. We all know how hard it is to be a rookie in IndyCar. So, really, this is about giving ourselves a running start into next year.
We'll let you get to it. We have an incident on the track. Thank you for your time.
No worries, thanks.
That's, of course, Gavin Ward, team principal for Aaron McLaren. And, Mark, we did have an incident out here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca.
Yeah, Nick Yeoman's with us for this session, and heavy damage to the rear end of the 20 machine, Nick Yeoman and Christian Rasmussen.
Yeah, this was coming out of turn number 10. Christian Rasmussen, full song. That car stepped out. He tried to catch it, and then once he got offline, he got off track into the gravel, and pretty big hit to the tire barrier. Rear of that car, left rear suspension is damaged. The rear wing is destroyed. And, Davey, I think the most noticeable thing is that it jarred a bit of that tire barrier loose as well. That was a big hit for the rookie Christian Rasmussen.
Yeah, it was a big hit for him, no question about it. Over that gravel trap with high rate of speed. I mean, as you said, he got down to the apex of that corner, the back and came around. He corrected it, but man, it hooked on that right rear tire and it shot him straight off the racetrack. As that gravel trap, it did help slow him down, but the tire barriers, he hit it hard and it tore up that car pretty majorly.
Little surprised that he carried that much momentum once he got off course, Davey.
Yeah, you know what happened there is that's a fast corner right there, and usually if you just spin right there, you're going to take a lot of momentum off, you know, and it's going to be pretty easy hit, more than likely slow down. But what happened as soon as he shot that thing straight, man, you're not scuffing off any speed, especially when you're in there most of the time over that gravel trap. And man, he did have a lot of speed going through that.
We talked about McLaughlin being fast, Davey, but we also talked about Colton Herta, who's been to victory lane here, and got to give a shout-out since we're here with that California kid, Andretti Global, of course, with Curb Agajanian sponsorship. Of course, the Agajanian name, no stranger to California race fans.
No, I mean, they have a lot of success at this racetrack as well. And Curb Agajanian has been around the game for a long, long time. I mean, follow back to, you know, Agajanian, the Parnelli Jones, you know, wins back in Parnelli's day that we lost a few weeks ago. And so they've been in this game a long time, still a big part of it. They have a relationship with Curb, obviously a long relationship with that Herta family as well.
Good news is, Nick Yeoman, it looks as though Christian Rasmussen is none the worse for wear. That car's heavily damaged, but he appears to be okay.
Yeah, it's a tough break for that young man because this is a racetrack he really likes. Has a pair of Indy Next by Firestone wins here, winning here a year ago and then back in 2022. So I think young Christian probably came into this weekend, probably circling this date as one where he might be able to shine. But that team now on the back foot, Mark, as the AMR safety crew is attempting to hook some straps to the rear of that car again. That's where the majority of the damage was. Pretty heavy damage to the left rear suspension. And they're going to have to retrieve that car out of the gravel after a big hit for the rookie Fred Carpenter race.
Got to be doubly frustrating, Davey, because he had shown some promising pace early on in the session.
Oh, yeah, how about this? Kyle Kirkwood fastest right now at a 1:08.96. Rasmussen came across that timeline at a 1:08.98. I mean, just second quick, just almost right on top of Kirkwood's time. So never fun when you just set the second fastest lap of this session. I know it's early and things are going to change, but it looks like he had some good pace to contend with these guys, and then now the car's in pieces.
Happy to have back with us this weekend. We welcome in our good friend, the longtime voice, well, the only voice the San Jose Sharks have ever had, Dan Rusanowski. Hi, Dan.
Hi there, Mark. Hi, everybody. Great to be back in the West Coast Bureau of IndyCar Radio. We've got Tim Broyles here after that incident with Christian Rasmussen. Tell us what happened and what's the analysis.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty big hit. Think we might have just caught the curb there and pushed him off into the gravel. we'll just have to get back there and take a look and see what we got and get it fixed for qualifying.
Heading into qualifying before all of this incident, what's your feeling about just how tricky this track has become compared to last year?
Yeah, it's a bit different. Kind of the line of grip is a little bit different than we've seen in the past, so we just have to adapt, and luckily cars have been pretty good. Renus will get us a good read, and we'll have a good baseline going into qualifying.
Well, Renus looked pretty good, but obviously there was some thought about the engine there. What's the update on that?
I think it will be fine.
And one last question. This is an interesting circuit because of the repaving and everything you talked about. What about the notion of whether this is going to be an alternate race or a primary race? Any clues on that yet?
I think the jury's still out right now. We'll see how things work out in qualifying.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
Tim Broyles of the up there in the Great Hall of the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto is something that every broadcaster aspires to, and the fact that I've been fortunate enough to be with the San Jose Sharks organization for 33 years and had some great games to call, more to come, and obviously that transitions right here at the racetrack.
So you started with the Sharks when you were 10 years old, right? So you've been with them 33 years. I mean, you were a wonder kid, correct?
Oh, yeah, I was really young, sure. The time flies, doesn't it, Mark? I mean, heck, you were 15 when you started doing IndyCar radio, so it's the same thing.
It does get away from you. And again, happy to have you with us throughout the course of this weekend. So Kyle Kirkwood among those fast early on. And Nick Yeoman, we've talked with the Indy Next presented by Firestone about some drivers that are putting together solid second halves of the season. And well, I'll tell you what, Kyle Kirkwood started to make people sit up and take notice of his second half efforts.
Yeah, of course, the rookie season with AJ Foyt Racing did a lot of learning and didn't have a lot of results to show for it. But boy, Kyle Kirkwood a year ago when he joined Andretti Global really took off, winning a pair of races and came into this season with some high expectations. Hasn't necessarily found victory lane quite yet here in the third year of his career, Mark, but he's getting close. And it's the consistency that I think has to really please Michael Andretti. Through 7 races, he has yet to finish worse than 11th. Yeah. And the last 3 races mark a 7th, a 4th, and a 5th. So he is quietly putting together a very, very nice third season in IndyCar. Is in the top 5 in points. Like he's tied with Scott McLaughlin right now for 5th in points. So very much in the hunt if he can regain that form and turn that consistency maybe into a couple wins, Mark. I wouldn't count Kyle Kirkwood out in the championship, but really making the progress that I think you'd want to see from year 1 to year 2, now to year 3, the consistency everywhere we go, whether it's ovals, roads, courses, street circuits. Kyle Kirkwood's not showing a lot of weaknesses, and that's why he is living up to the billing as one of the most talented prospects we've seen in this sport.
Led 24 laps in Detroit, the most he's led this season. And, Davey, I don't think there's any question. It was huge for both Michael Andretti and A.J. Foyt a couple of years ago when he was essentially farmed out to A.J. Foyt Racing, give him an opportunity to get a year's worth of seat time under his belt. And, something similar to go back to the comments that Gavin Ward was sharing with Michael Young. I mean, clearly that race team felt like that once Nolan Siegel abandoned his efforts to win an Indy Next championship, if he's a guy that they had their eye on, might as well go ahead and put him in the car now, and that gives him a tremendous head start on 2025.
Yeah, there's always behind the scenes that we don't know about. A lot of on the social media, and a lot of hammering comes down, and about Zach signing so many drivers that never really give them the opportunity and pulling them out of the cars when they're doing good. A lot of things went by, but you never know what the behind the scenes are. And yes, that makes sense. If they already had their eye on Nolan Siegel for next year, and all of a sudden he came available right now, you're left in a position where you better nab him now, as he said, or somebody else will. So, we feel bad for Pourchaire, but obviously it sounds like Pourchaire didn't have even a shot with that team for next year. And that is a little surprising because he's ran really good. I mean, I think he could be a contender in this series. I think he proved how fast he is and how he adapted to our tracks and these cars in America. And so it's, sad to see for him. But hopefully he wants to come back. I think he was fun to have in our series. And on the Foyt side with Kirkwood, you're right. It worked out great for both teams, right? AJ didn't have a driver at that time. Had an opportunity to get, a rookie out of the champion out of the Indy Next. And Andretti had him under contract. And didn't have a seat for him. So it worked out good for both teams. He learned a lot. It was always good being with a different team and to learn how to go about things. And now he's plugged in with Andretti, I expect, for a long time.
Again, early leaders was just a handful of laps turned in this session. Kirkwood, Rasmussen, Herta, Ericsson, Simpson. Siegel, Rossi, Lundgaard, Ferrucci, and Power. Good news is, Davey Hamilton, there's about an hour-long window here to get 45 minutes in. So while they were working to retrieve the car of Christian Rasmussen, the clock was actually stopped. So the teams now have some 39 minutes still on the clock to work with here.
Yeah, still plenty of time. As you said, not every car, 23 have made some laps. Some of them only 1 or 2 laps, but you're right. It's time for them all to get going now. They got plenty of time to go through the systems and to go through their checklist to find out what they need to do for qualifying. Now, remember, the softer compound tires were ran yesterday, not today, and that's where they're going to be running primarily for qualifying. So they need to find that balance. They need to get the cars a little faster on some cases, and hopefully the ones that were fast, like Kirkwood, Herta, a few of those teams, they just want to contain to staying in the front.
Interesting to note that at least in the Ed Carpenter camp, they're a little unsure as to whether or not this will be an alternate or a primary style race, and certainly not going to get an opportunity to answer that question now. And they only took about 16 minutes to try to answer that question as how those alternates were going to work out during that session yesterday, as you talked about.
Yeah, so, there's several things that I look at, Mark, on whether it's going to be an alternate race or that's going to be the best tire for the race or the primaries. And right now, without going into final warm-up, that's going to tell us everything. But I feel like it's going to be an alternate race. I think the tires are very durable. I don't see the alternates cutting a big lap time advantage, but you never know. I mean, the track is only a year old, and it could still be hard on tires. And we always know Firestone, they do such a great job with the tires that they bring every year. These tires seem to be a little bit stronger. I expect them to have little heavier hybrid engine in them this year. So they seem to be, a more durable tire. But remember, at Road America, that tire was definitely durable for that race, but we've seen some blistering as well.
Let's go to Michael Young.
Yeah, normally all smiles, but not in this instance. A rough morning for Christian Rasmussen. What happened out there?
Yeah, as I was coming into turn 10, and as I was coming in, I think the rear just stepped out, and then as I hit that compression, just kind of tank slapped out towards the wall. Yeah, unfortunate start to the day for sure. Not what we wanted. Yeah, hopefully the boys can get the car back together. Sorry it had to end this way in practice 1, but hopefully we can get it together and have a decent qualifying.
How was the car up until that point? I know a lot of people were talking about some of the sealant, that there is grip maybe in turn 2, then it goes away. Was that the instance down there for you in 10?
Yeah, definitely the line is super tight this year, it seems like. Decent grip on line, but once you get a little bit off it, there's not much. Managing that can be hard, but yeah, I'll have to see the incident before I really know what happened. It happened pretty fast, so.
Glad you're okay. We'll see you out in qualifying.
Thank you.
That's Christian Rasmussen.
Thank you, Michael Young. Davey Hamilton, we saw Christian Lundgaard yesterday, Marcus Armstrong today at the entrance to that corkscrew. They attacked that curbing, but as we have seen, if you get too far to driver's right, if you get the car too far to driver's right, you can really upset the balance of the race car, and you can lose contact with the racing surface of the right side of that car, and then you're along for the ride.
Yeah, the cars don't flex like that road does. I mean, when you drop off, it's a steep S, and when that elevation change there, I mean, it's hard to keep all 4 tires on the ground. And if you, like you said, if you're a little far driver's right, it drops off even more drastically, gets you off course a little bit. Tires in there, we'll see that. That's not the last time we'll see that. We've seen it all weekend, and it's going to happen throughout the race. Very difficult corner to be super consistent and hit that line the same every time, for sure.
And with the apex of these turns, Davey, and the challenges that they present, say the difference between what we were running on at Road America, can they make adjustments to the steering and make it looser and make it tighter based upon the challenges of a particular racetrack?
Yeah, unfortunately not. They can change the ratio of the gear, but most of the time you have a street course gear, oval gear, and that's about it. And that's what they have, the street course or road course gear in it right now. And the ratio is what it is, and you just have to deal with it. There's sometimes, matter of fact, you have a lot of input, as we talked to Malukas, go through the corkscrew in a few areas where the brace on his hand, you have it turned so sharp that it's all the way, your right hand's going from, say, 3 o'clock over to like almost 9 o'clock. So that means your left hand's way underneath the steering wheel. And matter of fact, yesterday, just driving the 2-seater, my glove got hooked on my seat belt. So they have a lot of input around some of these corners for sure.
And Nick Yeoman, we're looking at Marcus Ericsson right now, and a lot of these drivers are turning that final approach into the corkscrew into a Formula drift session.
Yeah, Ericsson lost it early entering the corner of that corkscrew as he had that steering wheel sawed all the way to the right as he was catching it. And then it just completely botched his entry into the corner. And, yeah, you're at that point, you're just catching it downhill and hoping you got all four tires making contact with the racetrack so that you can put the throttle down and steer out of a mistake like that. But it's a tough corner, Mark, the entry into that. We've been seeing it all weekend long through these two practice sessions. It is hard to get the line right there, and if you carry a little too much speed, you're going to find yourself bouncing through the gravel and asphalt offline.
The challenge for this racetrack, Davey, obviously, there are pronounced elevation changes, but also throughout this racetrack, there are some places where, to the naked eye, you might not see a quick change in elevation or a little crest or what. But there are a lot of places where the car can get very, very light, almost unexpectedly, and cause the rear end grip to go away.
Yeah, we just seen one of those happen going into turn 11. Scott Dixon got in there really hard, even though it's a flat part of the racetrack, got on the brakes, spun around in that turn 11, got off of the outside of the track in the gravel. He's going to continue on right now, but yeah, absolutely. And I think turn 5 is when we see Pato O'Ward. When your car feels really good down there, or you got a nice balanced car in most places, you go to turn 5, and for whatever reason, the back of that car really wants to come around. So even if your car seems super balanced most places on this race course, there's these corners that throw you off, which is like turn 5 and turn 11.
Alexander Rossi, Felix Rosenqvist, the top two right now. Alex below, Kirkwood, Rasmussen through 5th, and Simpson, Herta, Ericsson, VK, and Newgard, the 10th fastest. Will Power, 11th quick. David Malukas up to 12th quick. Linus Lundqvist is 13th quick. 14th Scott Dixon, 15th Harvey, 16th Rob, 17th Grosjean, 18th Lundgaard, 19th Armstrong, 20th Rahal, Siegel up to 21st, Santino Ferrucci 22nd, Luca Giotto is continuing to get comfortable here. He's up to 24th fastest, Augustin Canapino 25th, and right now Fittipaldi is 26th fastest. And Nick Yeoman, it looked like the second half of the season was turning around nicely for one Alexander Rossi. 8th place finish and a 4th place finish in Indianapolis on the road course of the Oval, a 5th place finish in Detroit, but then had an 18th place finish at Road America. Before we talk more about that, though, looks like trouble for the 41 car.
Yeah, that is entering the corkscrew, Davey. That's Stingray Rob, who looks like he's buried that car.
Yeah, really early, right? I mean, he's at the top of the hill. He wasn't able to make the left-hander coming downhill, so I'm not sure if a brake lock-up or something happened on top of that hill, but he sits at the very top of it on the outside of that turn 8 corkscrew. He didn't hit anything. Good news there. I mean, he just went off in the gravel trap. Car looks fine. They'll just tow him out. Should be just a quick little caution here, and then we'll get going again.
So Rossi looking for a bit of a rebound from the woes at Road America, Nick Yeoman, and for all intents and purposes, published reports over the course of the week, Marshall Pruitt and others saying it looks as though that he's really close to re-signing with Arrow McLaren.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that they want to shore up their driver lineup, that it'll be Pato O'Ward, Nolan Siegel, and Alexander Rossi back for another year. So, yeah, he's looking for the consistency. Also just looking to get back to victory lane, Mark. It's been a couple years since he has won a race, hasn't won a race since he's been with Arrow McLaren, so looking for that consistency. We know Alexander Rossi can be a championship contender early on in his career. He was doing that when he was driving for Andretti Global. Hasn't quite found that same form for Arrow McLaren, but at the same time, though, Mark, it's not like that organization as a whole is racking up the wins either.
Right.
So Pato O'Ward's not winning races. He, had one handed to him at St. Pete's. So for he and Rossi, I know that organization would like to see him win a few more races.
Last win on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 2022 for Alexander Rossi. Let's check in with Michael Young.
Yeah, back in the Guy Care Chevrolet at Carpenter Racing pit for Christian Rasmussen. Looks like just to left rear. Tim Broyle said that's all he thinks it's really happened right now. They're checking the front of that car, and the front of the under tray has a little bit of damage to it. But all in all, I think they might have gotten away with one here. Like I said, the left rear pretty damaged, bent toe link, and the upper and lower A-arms have a little bit of damage to them. So the crew will go to work and hopefully have him back out there, but it looks like he'll be okay for qualifying.
Davey, I think after the course of this weekend, Tim Boffman, Dougie Allen, and all our friends with the AMR IndyCar safety crew are going to get tired of dumping rocks out and dirt out of the shoes.
Yeah, you see the rocks on Stingray's tires. Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, you can't even see the tire. I mean, it looks like you took a chocolate bar and dipped it in the peanuts when it's wet, because, I mean, it is it is completely covered. Those rocks really stick to these Firestone tires, and that AMR safety team, they know they want to get those rocks cleared so they don't get on the racetrack. They're doing that right now. They do have Stingray turned around. He's headed down the hill, so he's going the right direction. They're firing him up right now, and he'll come to pit lane as the green to come out momentarily.
That, again, with the 1 hour window or so to get this 45-minute session in, Nick Yeoman, the good news is the clock is stopped, and there's still 31 minutes of running time left in this session for these teams and drivers.
Yep, that was a change we saw that IndyCar made about a year and a half ago to kind of change the schedule up and assure that we're getting as much green flag time as possible. So we have these kind of built-in buffer zones for these red flags so that these drivers will all still get the amount of practice time that they deserve to work on those setups. And as Davey mentioned, Stingray Rob is wiggling that car back and forth and laying a lot of gravel as he descends down the hill. And, hey, maybe just let gravity do the work. When you're driving downhill, just kind of let the rocks roll out of that thing. But he is going to bring that car for A.J. Foyt Racing back to pit lane. And Davey described it perfectly. Holy smokes, a lot of gravel caked onto those Firestone tires for Stingray.
And, Davey, we saw, matter of fact, Santino Ferrucci use gravity in reverse to his advantage yesterday when he was sliding down out of the corkscrew yesterday in practice.
Well, how about that? Santino going through that corkscrew is pretty amazing that he got down the hill in 8, then get to 8A, spun the car around, knowing that that's a blind corner. Cars are going to be coming over that thing. You cannot see. And him being right in the middle of the racetrack, he was fortunate enough to be backwards, let the car roll down the hill, did a little Hollywood spin around, 180 degree going backwards, hit the brakes, spun it back around, and kept right on going. So good job by him. Didn't bring a yellow out and really kept him and other drivers out of harm's way.
So Rossi, Rosenquist below Kirkwood and Rasmussen, the top 5. Simpson, Herta, Erickson, VK, and Newgarden through 10th. Will Power 11th. David Malukas is 12th. Linus Lundqvist is 13th. Scott Dixon 14th. Jack Harvey is 15th. Stingray Rob is 16th. Roman Grosjean 17th. Christian Lundgaard 18th. 19th Armstrong. 20th Ray Hall. 21st McLaughlin. 22nd Nolan Siegel. 23rd Santino Ferrucci. Luca Giotto 24th. Augustin Canapino 25th. And Fittipaldi is 26th quickest. Nick Yeoman, give us a little preview. It's a doubleheader weekend for the Indy Next presented by Firestone.
Yep, kind of a two-horse race at the top of the point standings with Louis Foster and Jacob Abel. They've been slugging it out all year. Jacob Abel with a 19-point advantage, but Louis Foster is hot and right on his heels. 19 points entering this weekend. And all Louis Foster has done so far, Mark, how about sweeping both practice sessions yesterday? And then earlier this morning, he grabbed pole position for both race 1 later this afternoon and race 2 on Sunday. Lots of good storylines. Kyle Collette's been very, very strong. The young Brazilian is looking for his very first Indy Next by Firestone win. He's going to start on the front row alongside Louis Foster in both of those races. And then really, Mark, the cool storyline at leaving Road America. How about the win for Jamie Chadwick, becoming just the 3rd female to win an Indy Next by Firestone race as she got it done, leading all 20 laps at Road America to win that race, her first win of her career. She's going to be a factor as well when we go racing later this afternoon at Indy Next by Firestone.
I saw an interview with her earlier this week that she did with an outlet talking about that win, and said that recently the team made a change to the setup of that race car that really benefited her. But she said as much as anything, it was the commitment she made in the offseason after a year in the series. She realized that she really needed to beef up that upper body strength.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, we can't say it enough. There's no power steering on these race cars, and that is not the case with a lot of race cars around the world that drivers compete in. Formula One, NASCAR, they've got power steering. We don't have it over here in American open wheel racing. So she learned firsthand that you got to get stronger. Had to learn all these racetracks as well. She spent all her junior Formula career racing over in Europe, and then came over to race here in America and didn't have any experience on these racetracks. So after a full year of experiencing the car, getting a feel for it, learning the tracks, she has come out in her 2nd year mark and been very, very impressive, and it all came together for her in Road America. Congratulations to Jamie Chadwick.
Michael Young.
A brand new chassis for the 41 of Stingray Rob, and right now the crew basically in cleanup mode, polishing it off, getting that Good Heart Healthcare, the Animal Healthcare Center car, I should say, all cleaned up. They have hoses everywhere, air jets trying to blow the dust and the pebbles out underneath that car. But as I look at the rear of the machine, there is no damage to the toe links, upper or lower arms, all look good, same to the front. So, again, dodged a bullet with that one. It's just going to be clean up for this Goodhart Chevrolet for Stingray Rob.
Davey Hamilton, Scott Dixon currently 14th, 21st place finish at Road America. Still very much, though, in championship contention. And every year you wonder if Father Time is going to catch up with Scott Dixon, and it doesn't appear as though he's caught him yet.
Man, isn't it unbelievable? He just brings it out. I mean, he had a bad run there. As he said, blistered a tire. Had to come in like 7 laps into his run and make another stop. So had an extra stop, put him way behind. But he is a guy that just continues to pull wins off. And Father Time, like I say, not getting him. He looks like a young spring chicken to me, ready to win many more races and continue to set the record books. And right now, I'm looking at the top 5 in this session. Right now, you got Arrow McLaren car, you got a Meyer Shank car, you got Pelot in Ganassi car, then you got Andretti car and Ed Carpenter car. So top 5 drivers, 5 different teams. How impressive is that?
Well, and the reality of it is, well, there seems to be some parity throughout the course of the regular season, if you will, Nick Yeoman, in terms of drivers that are getting wins and even some first-time winners. Bottom line is this: over the past number of years now, in terms of championships, it's been pretty much locked up by Penske and Ganassi.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're the gold standard of the sport, and we would expect once we get to qualifying and race simulations at most tracks that we go to that those teams usually rise to the occasion. They have engineers that have been in this sport for a very, very long time. They got a good feel for these race cars, and naturally they have some of the best drivers in the sport. But on any given Sunday, as they say, any of these drivers and these teams can have their day, and we have certainly seen that. In the long run, you're right, it's always going to trend towards those better teams. That's just how it happens in sports. But when we come to a place like Laguna Seca, don't be surprised if a Felix Rosenquist can maybe pull off an upset and win a race for Meyer Shank Racing. He's been very fast all season long. Kiffin Simpson's having a nice practice session. He sits 6th fastest right now. He's starting 13 laps at rookie for Ganassi as he continues to come along. So those are the kind of neat stories, Mark, that I think you see more into the second half of the season as well. Once some of these younger drivers have a feel and they've gelled with those teams, you're going to start to see those upsets and them knock on the door of beating Penske and Ganassi for race wins.
All right, so Davey, we know that when you're out there on the alternates like they were yesterday in the last 15 or 20 minutes of the session, you know that primary focus is going to be on those alternates and getting that qualifying setup all squared away. I know that a lot of teams working on race pace and race setup, but any at all looking at how these tires are performing in a qualifying sim during this session?
Yeah, they will. And what yesterday's when they put those alternates on, which I still don't understand why they put them on a day before qualifying, not before the qualifying session. But what they do, they'll have the data from that. And if the car has a balance change, that's what they look for more than anything, Mark, is if you have your primaries on and then you put the alternates on, they want to make sure that the balance of the car, that it stays the same. And just hope it speeds it up. If the balance changes, for example, if the front doesn't turn as good, you may need to put some more nose wing in for the alternate tires. That's what they're learning, obviously. And then when they put the primaries back on, they try to get that car as fast as they can and then make whatever little changes they have to for the alternates.
Not a smooth run through the corkscrew for Romain Grosjean, Nick Yeoman.
He's had worse runs through that. I remember him going sideways, bouncing off of Jimmy Johnson a couple years ago. But I would love to see what the underside of these front wings look like on these race cars, because I imagine they've just got to be scraped up like the underside of your coffee table after doing practice laps and throughout qualifying in the race, because Grosjean took a rough ride through the corkscrew where that front wing was bouncing off up and on and off the racetrack. Didn't see a ton of damage to it, Mark, but again, I'm sure the underside of that thing's pretty scraped up.
And so, Davey, again, so the layperson understands, why does there seem to be difficulty, even with the most experienced drivers, keeping these things on course? I mean, we saw Will Power with the wide swing just a few moments ago, I believe, down around turn number 3.
Man, what the situation is this track is just that difficult, and to keep it on track, there's not a lot of runoff area when you're pushing as hard as you can, trying to get the most out of the car, and you're on that very edge. It doesn't take much to go over that edge slightly, and it's more pronounced here, Mark, than this for, say, Road America. When you go out for Road America, it's grass, and it doesn't throw any dust or dirt or gravel on the racetrack in most places. Here, no matter where you go off, it's dirt and gravel. So it really, you really can tell when somebody barely hangs the tire off. It's a plume of dust to go up, rocks that fly around the racetrack. And so we notice it as the spectators and here in the booth much more than you would at a Road American.
Nick Yeoman, Joseph Newgarden currently 9th quick. He's trying to keep pace in the championship in terms of points and trying to stay solidly inside the top 10. Bottom line is this for the rest of the field. They might want to try to get some distance on Joseph Newgarden because we do have quite a few races coming up on ovals very, very soon.
Oh, and he's also been basically untouchable on a lot of the ovals over the last several years. For the longest time, we knew he was good at places like Iowa and like Worldwide Technology Raceway. Then he figured out how to win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he's won the last 2 darn Indianapolis 500. So, yes, obviously dealt that big points penalty early on with the disqualification and has had to kind of claw his way back into the championship. And as you alluded to, has still a way to go as he sits 8th in points, 67 points back. But you're right. With all the ovals at the end of the season, added to with Milwaukee, you've now got the Nashville finale on an oval. It wouldn't take much for Joseph Newgarden to get hot, rip off a couple wins, and he's going to be right there in the hunt, Mark. So far in this practice session, that number 2 car for Penske is down in 11th position with his teammate Will Power just a couple spots behind. And as for Scott McLaughlin, who was fastest yesterday, he's still down at 24th. But you're right, those Penske cars, Joseph Newgarden in particular, going to be strong this second half of the season when we start turning left only the oval portion of the schedule.
Well, the difficulty becomes at some point, Davey, with the championship, and we talk about it each and every year. If you're looking at Potawatomi Ward and Scott McLaughlin, Kyle Kirkwood, Colton Herta, Joseph Newgarden, and others, the problem for them becomes, while Joseph Newgarden can get hot and rack up wins on an oval, he's got to rely on bad days, and several of them for drivers like Will Power, Alex Palou, and Scott Dixon. And those guys, I think, have a pretty good track record when it comes to minimizing the number of DNFs throughout the course of a season.
Yeah, they can minimize the damages, and don't forget how good they are on ovals as well. All have oval wins, and it just seems like Newgarden is, like you said, the hotter driver on the ovals here as of late. But don't count those guys out on ovals either. They can put themselves in victory lane very, very easy and continue to drive for that championship. And as you said, with Newgarden being down on the standings a little bit, a lot of people have to have problems before he makes his way to the top.
Alexander Rossi, Kyle Kirkwood, Armstrong, Rosenquist, and below the top 5. Rasmussen, although his session is over, is currently 6th quick. Kiffin Simpson continues a solid run, 7th quick. Ray Hall awarded Colton Herta the top 10. And how about that Mobil 1 paint scheme on that 15 machine of Graham Rahal this weekend, Davey? That's a cool-looking race car.
Absolutely great-looking race car, that shiny gold. Obviously, it must be the gold anniversary for Mobil 1 because, I haven't seen that logo or that paint scheme before, but right here across from our booth, they have an outstanding hospitality area set up for that Ray Hall Letterman team. Lanigan, and it's all gold with the Mobil 1 and their name on it. So cool looking car for Graham Rahal this weekend. And by the way, pretty cool looking suit too, that all gold shiny race suit.
And we've talked about this, Davey, over the past several years. We've seen that, these teams have gotten really creative in terms of the sponsorships. I mean, everybody wants to land that big full season sponsor, but I think the business side, the business reality of it is these teams have worked very, very hard to piece together sponsorships almost on a regional basis. I remember a few years ago when we had a doubleheader weekend in Detroit, I think it was, Graham Rahal's scheme changed from one race to the next, and technology allows you to do that. And so teams have gotten really, really creative with their sponsorship packages.
Well, and you have to. The budgets are, very high to run this series and run these cars. And so as a team, you have to make sure you have the proper partners, that the ROI is good for the team. It's good for the sponsors, the partners that you're bringing in. And sometimes you can't do that. You can't make it work on a full season, one sponsor per team per year kind of a program. So, yeah, you're having to switch around for a lot of these other sponsors to make sure that the team's funded for the year, and you may only have a small piece of it, but you know what? These teams do a great job because I'm sure Mobil 1's on their cars for the rest of the season as well, but it's just in a smaller form.
Nick Yeoman, Potawatomi Ward, 4th in the championship chase, has found a little bit of pace.
Yeah, here come the Aero McLaren Chevrolets as Potawatomi Ward and Alexander Rossi have locked down the top 2 spots. Just the 4th lap that we have seen Potawatomi Ward out on the racetrack. He has not been particularly busy during this practice session, but didn't take long for him to go fastest at a minute 8.549. That is just under a tenth of a second faster than his teammate Alexander Rossi. Those two Chevrolets, those orange and black machines, have popped to the top of timing and scoring. So we were just kind of talking about it, Mark. Here's a team that needs to find their way back and start earning some race wins. And at least here in practice, they're showing that Award and Rossi appear to have that pace. We'll see if it carries over in qualifying later today.
Kirkwood, Armstrong, Herter, Rosenquist, below, Rasmussen, Simpson, and Rahal the top 10 with 19 minutes remaining in this session. Of course, the hybrid, the long-awaited, long-anticipated hybrid, set to be unveiled at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Let's get the Honda perspective from Michael Young.
Yeah, with Calvin Fu, of course, from HRC. And Calvin, we were talking about the development of this hybrid system, and it's almost here, just a couple of weeks away at Mid-Ohio. What can fans expect from it?
Oh, I think it's going to be a really interesting application for hybrids. I think the way IndyCar is doing it is very different from any other series. It's very much going to be in the driver's hands. So there's going to be 60 extra horsepower, but then how they regen and recharge it from the braking and how they deploy it is very much going to be how do the teams and the drivers want to apply it. So I think it's going to be much more driver forward, right? I think in the other series, it's kind of invisible. You don't know when things are happening, and the teams want to keep it that way because it's a secret. But I think with IndyCar, it's going to be very open. You're going to be able to see them regen, see them applying it, and then it's going to really put a lot more focus on how the driver is going to use the system. And the drivers that can handle the complexity will slowly move to the front.
So it's an actual on steering wheel application, the actual button, or how will they enable it?
Who knows, right? Because it could be done by... there could be a button for regen, a button for applying it, but there also could be a clutch pedal. As you pull it, it regens more. You could also do when you're braking or when you're accelerating. So there's a menu of options, and depending on the track and how IndyCar wants to do it, the teams will have to kind of pick between those. So we're working, and I'm sure the competition too is what's the best way to apply it across all of them. Every driver, every team may be slightly different.
So there's an opportunity for it to grow from its infancy when we see it in a couple of weeks to potentially 3 years from now.
I think so too. I think there's definitely extra power and energy in the system. Again, it's up to IndyCar how we want to apply it. This year, baby steps. And I think right now, let's make sure it's reliable, make sure we're using it correctly. And then as we develop it in short ovals and road course, street courses, I'm assuming everybody's going to be trying different things to see what optimizes lap time.
I understand that the sky is the limit for this and what it can actually do. An onboard starter, they actually, if they've saved enough energy, can actually restart the car, correct?
Yes, yeah. So the way it's built in there, you should be able to start the engine if there's enough energy in the supercharged capacitor system.
So the drivers have a big key in this. They have to be able to manage it as well as use it.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of luck too, right? If you happen to spin and stall and you're down on power, that's kind of the way it is. But hopefully, there'll be a lot less yellows,
It'll be exciting. And in any case, we look forward to it in a couple of weeks. Of course, the introduction at Mid-Ohio. We appreciate your time as always. Is there a place where fans can go to get more or learn more about this?
Yeah, so Honda has created, with Marshall Pruitt, has created a YouTube series. I think there's going to be 4 total, and right now there's 2. So you can go to the HRC US YouTube channel and take a look at it.
Appreciate your time as always.
Thanks so much.
And that's, of course, Calvin Fu with HRC, and we look forward to seeing that hybrid system coming up in just 2 weeks at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
Yeah, and for those that it goes well for, Davey, they will be happy that it has arrived, and if things don't go well for some, they will certainly bemoan the fact that switch is being made mid-season.
Yeah, it's quite a decision, honestly, to bring a new engine package, a completely new engine package into the series halfway through the season. So it's going to be interesting. Let's just keep our fingers crossed. It all works good for everybody, and because it could change a lot of things, including our championship battle. We're pretty sure reliability, they've tested enough on reliability, should be good. But just such a different package, and bringing it in halfway through the season is definitely a gamble on IndyCar side for sure. But obviously behind the scenes they must think they have it all figured out, which would be great.
Well, in terms of the development, Davey, it's almost unprecedented because Honda and Chevy have worked together on various elements of this. And we know about the healthy competition that exists between these two and the battle for the Indy 500 every year. And right now, the Engine Points Championship has Chevy leading 561 to 545. But they worked in lockstep with the NTT IndyCar Series in the development of this project.
Yeah, and that's pretty, unprecedented. You have two engine manufacturers work together, as you said, to make this a reliable program, a good program for competition, and make it best for both of them as well. So we know we're not the first hybrid series. That's no question about that. But we're doing it differently in IndyCar, and that difference is something that needs to be worked out, just as he mentioned on the interview, that there's several ways to activate it, to use it, to regen. So it's a lot for all of us to learn, not just these drivers and teams.
And it looks like recent winners continue to be comfortable here at the Firestone Grand Prix of Monterey, Nick Yeoman, as we have someone new atop the leaderboard.
Yeah, a couple new drivers have popped to the top. Colton Herta, who won here a few years ago, has gone the fastest at a minute 8.230. Alex Palou, who absolutely stunk up the show 2 years ago, winning by 30 seconds. He's moved to P2 in that DHL Honda for Chip Ganassi Racing. And then Scott McLaughlin, we wondered, he was kind of buried down in the 20s for the first half of this practice session. That Penske Chevrolet has found some speed as Scott McLaughlin in that Good Ranchers meat wagon, as he calls it. He's pretty fast as well, marking a minute 8.460. So Herta, Palou, McLaughlin, Award, and Rossi, your top five.
13 minutes remain in the session, Michael Young.
And Marcus Ericsson sits on pit lane. Wholesale changes on the front and rear dampers, changing the springs on both ends of the car as Christian Lundgaard pops into the view of his crew and will come to a stop here on pit lane. So with that waning moments remaining in this practice session, some major changes going on for Marcus Ericsson.
Let's state facts, Davey. Pretty difficult to pass here. There have been 27 races and 13 times a driver has won from pole here.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely an advantage to be in the front of this field for this racetrack. It's a short track. It's really fast. It's only a couple really good passing zones. You don't make mistakes. It's hard to pass the car in front of you. And even if you have a considerable amount of speed more than that car in front of you. So starting the farther up front as you can is definitely an advantage. Now, one thing for sure, I mean, things change and strategies change throughout these races. If yellows come out and how many of them come out when they pit, a lot of that brings excitement into it, but at the end of the day, you want to start on the front of this race.
Well, there have been 6 different winners at this point of the season, and we talked a little bit about the regular season parity that exists, but the dominance of the championship, and the reality of it is, with the exception of Pato Award's, Pato Award being awarded the win at St. Petersburg, Davey, all of the wins since that time have belonged to Penske and Ganassi.
Yeah, pretty amazing, right? And surprising that a few other teams have not been in victory lane, and including the Andretti team, and they have some powerhouses with Colton on top. How about Power just goes into P2 right now? Palou still in third, McLaughlin fourth, and Pato Award in that 5th position. And I think there's been a lot of hope on the Meyer-Shank team that they could find victory lane as well. Rosenquist, he came out so hot, Mark. We thought, he's getting poles and starting up front. He's not out of the top 5 hardly ever, but still hasn't been able to pull that win off. So, they're hunting as well.
It had been a while since Will Power had been in victory lane, and we saw the relief and the celebration with him and his family and his race team at Road America, Davey, and him popping up to P2 reminds us that the rest of the field might want to take notice, because Will Power's been waiting a while for that win, and now they might come in groups.
Well, there's a reason that he's on top of that championship battle, and the contenders, we see Simpson slide off in that gravel trap. Yellow is going to come out to get him retrieved. He didn't keep the car running, but with Power, he's got that confidence back. It looks good. He's back to his winning ways. But he's been second so darn many times this season in qualifying and in races that it wasn't a surprise that he won that Road America. But what surprised me more than anything, I didn't realize how long it had been since he won a race, just a bit over 2 years.
This race can unfold very much like that one did, though, Nick Yeoman. It may just, because of the fact that it's going to be a definitive number of stops in that race, and it's all going to boil down. I mean, if the thing stays green like it did primarily at Road America, except for the disjointed start we got off to, it may just simply be a matter of timing and undercutting.
Yeah, no, the in and out laps are so very important, and we saw it at Road America from where I was at down at their entrance of turn number 1, watching those final Team Penske pit stops. Will Power was one of the last ones to pit, but his crew got him in and off a pit lane nicely, and he was able to get up to speed quickly to build that lead and ultimately hold on to knock off Newgarden and McLaughlin to score those race wins. So, yeah, this one could absolutely have that same kind of feel of if we get some long green flag runs, maximizing your in and out laps, having the strategy laid out perfectly to pit that car at the exact perfect time and get some track position, get ahead of guys, stay out of traffic once we start lapping guys. That's going to factor in, and that's how Will Power has won a lot of races over the years.
Davey, I've got to give a tip of the captain, David Malukas, currently setting 21st fastest. It appears as though he's settling in nicely to that 66 car for Myers-Chang.
We know his capabilities. It just he's came off injury, hasn't been in a car for a while. He's with the new team. It's going to take him a bit to get going, but yes, he's shown some improvement. The tricky part is we've all had to race with some kind of a handicap or an injury or an ailment, and right now with that wrist injury, he's just trying to learn how it works, how what he needs, what kind of bracing he needs to drive this car, what kind of pain he's going through right there. So really good run for Lucas right now in that 21st spot. How about Phil DePaulty? He was at the top of the charts yesterday, finds himself at 22nd. Don't be surprised if he finds a little bit more and gets in that top 10 before the session's over.
Yeah, so Davey, to the layperson, explain what could be the issue there. Is it just a different setup they're working on with the race car? Are they working more on race pace today? What could be the explanation for that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that be going into that thing, and one of them could be just as simple as the car didn't have as good of a feel as it did yesterday. He just maybe something's changed a little bit. They tried something that didn't work, so maybe they need to go back to it. But then, just getting a clean lap is sometimes hard. I was watching Will Power out there. I mean, he pounded around and it ran some good laps. I had some in-car with him. I thought, well, that's a good lap, and it really wasn't. It was like 15th or 16th. Then all of a sudden he shoots from there all the way to P2. So it's just a matter of getting everything just right, getting the car where you like it, the closest you can with the setups that's on the car right now, hitting every mark exactly right, and making sure that you get the most out of the car. And that little bit makes a big difference as close as these times are.
Now, the clock stopped momentarily so they could get the car of Kip and Simpson restarted, but now, Davey, it has restarted because we've reached that window now where the clock will continue to roll if we would have another off. There's about 9 minutes remaining in the session.
Yeah, 9 minutes remaining. Simpson's on pit lane, so I expect that green flag. The AMR safety team cleaning up the track just a little bit over there between turns 9 and 10 and making sure there's no gravel and dirt on it. But it doesn't look like any damage for sure to Simpson's car. And as Nick Yeoman said, these nose wings, aren't they amazing? I mean, just the beating that they take, all the downforce that is generated by these nose wings, and they're not really hooked on by very much, kind of like an airplane wing. You always wonder how they hold so much weight and do what they do. Well, these nose wings are the same, and one thing that Delara has been able to do from cars of the way past is the noses are higher, and they're able to keep these nose wings higher. So when they do go off course, they don't rub and drag as much as they used to back in the day.
About a minute to go until we get back to green flag conditions. We can tell you the rest of the day looks like this at 12:20 local time. 3:20 Eastern, Indy Next race number 1 with Louis Foster on pole. And then a little bit later on today, 2:15 local time, 5:15 Eastern, INDYCAR qualifying. And, Davey, we've already documented how important it is to be on pole here. And it's certainly going to be a slugfest, as it always is during this knockout qualifying, and the desire to get into a minimum of the Firestone Fast 6.
Fast 6. Oh, yeah. You want to be, and more than likely, the winner of this race is going to be in that Firestone Fast 6. So you want to do all you can to be there. If it ended right now and qualifying was the same, it would be Herta, Power, Pelot, McLaughlin, Pato Ward, and Scott Dixon in that top 6. That's where you want to be. And I do think that more than likely, from what the history shows, that the winner is going to be out of those top 6.
Let's go to Michael Young.
Yeah, well, we've been talking a little bit about everything, and with the announcement of the 2025 schedule already, we're here with Chip Ganassi, and as a team owner with 5 cars, how does it help the team to know where you're going to be next year and then have a new broadcast partner, not only with INDYCAR Radio, but with Fox, and being on the big channel for the entire season?
Yeah, certainly anytime you get the schedule out early is a good thing. I think anytime you have a new broadcast partner, it brings a lot of excitement to the series and a lot of, look, NBC's been a great partner of ours for a lot of years, and circumstances make it such that it made an opening for a new partner, and it's a great thing. I think the fans will be excited about what they're going to see from that. You have a network that's going to have the Daytona 500 and the Indianapolis 500, so you're going to see a lot of lead-ins and from NASCAR races to IndyCar races and vice versa, which I think is a good thing. One channel, the fact that people can go to one channel and it's a broadcast network is a big thing. I think the good news is the sanctioning body has focused on eyeballs instead of maybe dollars, and I think that's a good thing.
How does this play into 5 cars for you next year? Obviously, it's a big undertaking to take on that many cars. Does that change how you approach things?
Well, we're going to have some new rules in terms of the charter that we have to abide by, but we're formulating that plan right now, and we have some exciting things happening. So I feel good about it.
Tell us a little bit more about that charter and the details of it, if you can.
Yeah, it's it's just something that takes IndyCar racing into the next step of professional sports. Let's face it. The NFL is the 800-pound gorilla and of sports, and certainly of television sports, and so we're all sort of on their coattails, I guess. But I think today, in any professional sports league, you need some sort of charter/franchise system. The dollars are just too big, So, and I think it opens the door for other investments in the sport when you have stability within the teams.
Lastly, the hybrid will be introduced in 2 weeks at Mid-Ohio. Your thoughts on that? Is there excitement there, curiosity? Where do you stand as a team owner?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of excitement about it. It's staying current with where automobiles are headed. And I think when you have the car companies that want to do it, you have to follow the car companies, and they seem to that's going to be a future that looks bright, and we should be on the front end of it.
Appreciate your time as always. Have fun the remainder of the weekend.
Thank you.
That's Chip Ganassi, guys.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that charter conversation pick up, Davey, and I think the discussions were scheduled for this weekend with a few key owners to try to get that solidified. And the owners have long said that as long as it's done the right way in a way that makes sense, basically what it boils down to, they feel like it gives them an opportunity to protect what is a hefty investment in the series. And if at some point, they decide that this would no longer be the place to be, they could make that charter available to somebody that wanted to come and go IndyCar racing instead of that equipment just sitting idle.
Well, one thing about it, it's a business. It's a complete business. So you look at how businesses are run. That is to be profitable, to make money. As Chip said, we're on the top end of professional motorsports. So you have to do things because the cost is going so high. You have to make it sustainable. And one thing to do is make that value. So different than any other business, whether they buy the real estate or they do things behind the scenes to get an equity in the business and chuck it along. And then at the end of it, there's a value to it. Well, this puts a value to every one of these teams. And so they're more willing to put investment into their team knowing that it's growing in value on the backside. So, I think it's great. It should be done in all sports. It's a great concept. It's a great idea. All that money gets pulled into, these teams, and that helps them with not only, as Chip said, with the partnership that we have, a new TV partnership, he says it's one channel and it's on Prime TV, so Prime Network. So I think that's going to be, the eyeballs are going to be seeing it, and that anytime that you can get those ratings with people watching, what I feel is the greatest and most competitive sport in the world, and that's IndyCar, that is just going to continue to grow our program.
It just continues to amaze me, though, that a lot of these discussions and a lot of these decisions, like the hybrid and charters and things of that nature, boy, that's normally part of your news cycle in the off-season. But, boy, we found out a few years ago when the silly season seemed to start at the end of March, I believe 3 or 4 seasons ago, as we see another off. Looks like the 51 machine of Luca Giotto got off, was able to get it back onto the racetrack. But Davey, there's no such thing as an off-season or a silly season anymore.
No, well, when we found out that the first race of the year last year, the silly season already started, I think that kind of set the platform that there is no season anymore. I mean, it could... crazy, surprising, good, bad news could all hit at any time in our sport, and I think that's pretty healthy, honestly. Some things some people like, some people don't. Some of the decisions for these drivers, one thing that coming on the driver's side of it is, I like to see the stability of our drivers maybe a little more secured, to where we're not, it makes us look more professional, that we have our drivers are under proper contracts and they have proper programs, and they're getting paid, for what they do. I mean, these are true athletes, and not too many people could do what they do. So they need to be paid for that, and they need to have some security. Now, one thing I will have to say, there's a lot of fantastic race car drivers now, and we have 29 spots. Well, I could name off 100 drivers that would like to be in those 29 spots. And when I say 100, that's easy. 100 that are capable and that would like to have these rides. So not everybody has that opportunity to get into our sport. It's very hard, but I think the more professional it is, and the more money and the more accessibility to our drivers, to our series, to our races is going to be a positive.
We were somewhat spoiled with stability over the course of a couple of years, and Nick Yeoman this offseason, I think probably was better than it has ever been for program sales at the opener in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the big difference is we're used to, Mark, at the midway point of the season, or even at the beginning of the season, having driver announcements for the following year, but we're seeing drivers replaced in the middle of the year for 2025, like with this Nolan Siegel situation. So it is just a new wrinkle to this silly season process that, as Davey talked about, it probably need to reevaluate it to a degree, because it's getting crazy now. We're not just seeing announcements for 2025 being made, but drivers being signed and put in cars in the middle of the season to shore up those plans for 25. It's wild right now.
Again, here's what the rest of this afternoon will look like, as we've got about 10 seconds remaining in this session at 12:20 local time, 3:20 Eastern. Indy Next race number 1, first half of the doubleheader. It's been the Louis Foster show so far this weekend. We'll see if Jacob Abel, Kyle Collette, any of those talented young drivers have anything for Louis Foster, who's on the charge toward a championship. Then at 2:15 local time this afternoon, 5:15 Eastern time, we'll have IndyCar qualifying. And so as the time expires on this session, we see Colton Herta fly under the checkered flag, and he is P1 at 68.230, and then Will Power second fastest, Alex Below third quick, Scott McLaughlin fourth, Pato Award fifth, Scott Dixon sixth, Felix Rosenquist seventh, Alexander Rossi is eighth, Kyle Kirkwood ninth, Marcus Armstrong is 10th, Marcus Ericsson is 11th, Roman Grosjean is 12th, Christian Lundgaard is 13th fastest, 14th is Rasmussen. But again, some work to do on that race car. He had it off early on, just turned 3 laps in the session, and at the time was inside the top 10, but only slipped to 14th as a result of that incident. 15th fastest, Kiffin Simpson. Graham Rahal 16th fastest. Linus Lundqvist 17th. Santino Ferrucci 18th. Joseph Dugard 19th. David Malukas 20th. Jack Harvey 21st. Stingray Rob 22nd. Fittipaldi 23rd. Canapino 24th. VK 25th, Nolan Siegel 26th, and Luca Giotto is currently 27th fastest. So everybody looking up at Colton Herta, Davey Hamilton.
Yeah, no surprise. I mean, Colton, he's so good here. He loves this racetrack. It's like a home track for him, and no surprise that Colton's on top. He loves this place, and he knows how to get around it.
Yeah, no question. Having been a multiple winner here, he loves this place. Will Power, of course, looking to heat up in his quest for another championship. And boy, Nick Yeoman, last year, with the race that Alex Palou had, I mean, we were struggling looking back from second, third, fourth, and even on back to fifth and sixth to find something to talk about because he had flat checked out.
Yeah, it was a dominating performance when he won that race in 2022 by a solid 30 seconds. Here's the thing that stands out to me, Mark. The cream rising to the top 9 in practice, all 9 of those drivers in the top 10 in points. The only one outlier that stands out is Joseph Newgarden, who's buried down there in 19th. But we are seeing the top drivers in the sport coming to a legendary place like Laguna Seca where they've got a ton of experience, and you're seeing the experience and those power teams rise to the top like they should be with guys like Herta, Power, Palou, who have been awful good here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for many years.
Yeah, I still have my eye on Alexander Rossi and Kyle Kirkwood. They certainly they currently sit 8th and 9th, but they're all looking up at Colton Herta, who's P1 after the session.
P2 yesterday, P1 today, another good session. Boy, it's completely different than yesterday, though. I was a little chilly yesterday. It's hot. Is it hot in the car?
Yeah, it's very hot. Car feels nice. We have a good package going, like we tend to do at this track. This is one of our better ones that we go to, so it's nice to see that nothing's changed and we can still be competitive.
We talk a little bit about the new track surface last year to this year. I heard, with some of the changes down in turn number 2 that there was some grippy parts, some that you lose grip. Has that kind of rubbered in by at this point of the weekend?
No, I don't think it will. I think it's that sealer that they have down kind of grips and ungrips the cars. And so it's a little bit difficult. And obviously there's a little bit more tire deg than the year before with it having a year to settle on this new pavement. So it's going to make it interesting for the race. I think it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to decide a lot of different things strategy-wise. So, but for us, we're just looking forward to qualifying, and it seems like we have a fast race car to go for the pole.
As far as decisions go, you had time to run in those alternate reds yesterday. Do you have any idea how they will be as far as the race setup goes?
No. They're going to be faster than the blacks over a lap. I know that for sure.
So are you going to stay with them? Are they going to be the preferred tire, I guess, then for the race, or is it still too soon to tell?
No clue.
All right, we wish you all the best. Nice job today. Colton Herta, P1 in that practice session, Mark Janes.
Well, that's about the second person we've heard Davey Hamilton say, I'm sure I don't know.
Yeah, it's a known fact. They don't know. And that final warm-up is definitely going to give them a good indication on which way to go, or that's the primary tire or the alternate tire for more race conditions. But as Colton said, they're not really worried about that right now. They're worried about trying to get on the pole, what a lot of these teams are. We know that the reds are going to be faster for qualifying. There's no question about that. All the cars will be on those. Then once that's over, then they'll work on that final warm-up for tomorrow, and that's when they're going to dictate and decide which tire they feel is going to be the best.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Over the past couple of races we've seen, especially on the road and street courses, I mean, for all of these teams and all of these drivers, for all intents and purposes, Davey, as important as qualifying is, for many of them, I think they all have that final warm-up session on race day circled as one where they get a lot of questions answered. We'll get Davey's comments on that if we hear from Dan Rusanowski. Oh, Michael Young.
Actually, with Michael, yeah. No, that's okay. We got Will Power. We thought we grab Will while we have a second, an opportunity to sit down. I was talking with Colton Herta, and he said it's really hot in those cars. I can't imagine what it'd be like if it was 95, but a night-and-day difference from yesterday. Did the track change for you, and if so, how?
Yeah, it was a little less grip. In some ways, it was easier because you could actually feel the car because it wasn't the weight. The wheel wasn't so heavy, but yeah, I mean, we improved our car a bit. I think I improved as a driver, so feeling okay, feeling good. You never say like you're confident you're going to make it through, but yeah, we're right there.
It's certainly going to be good in qualifying as well. We talked about the reds, and everybody's still kind of out as far as the jury goes on whether they're going to be good for the race or not.
Yeah, now it's hotter. That will be interesting because yesterday in the cool, they were holding on. Like I did my quickest on my second run, and blacks never went off. So it will be dependent on the temperature, I would say.
Best of luck in qualifying later today.
Thank you.
That's Will Power. Let's head down to Dan Rusanowski.
With Scott Dixon here in his pit from P11 to P1 last year here at Laguna Seca. Obviously, you've had a year of degradation on the track surface. Well, how does that change the way you approach it?
Yeah, the track's definitely a lot different. I think it's more about the patches, to be honest, where they've tried to repair some of the circuit.
it's a little bit better today than it was yesterday. Yesterday there was a large difference in the grip levels between the original surface and those. So I think for the race that will get a little bit better, but it's definitely going to catch a lot of people out. I think we've seen a lot of cars off track. We did last year because offline is quite slippery, but this year we've had a lot of crashes already. So it could be a wild race again, man.
Everybody talks about the corkscrew, of course, but turn 6 before you head up the straight and then turn 9 right after that are both pretty challenging, don't you think, with this new configuration?
Yeah, I think a lot of corners are. Honestly, turn 2, the first big corner on the track, after the main straight is pretty iffy, just because of those patches. So it's very easy to mess that up. Same on entry to 3, just because you're getting patches there. 4, we've seen a lot of people going off. 6, not so bad, but 7, going before you go up the hill, there's a large compression there, and if you miss your entry a little bit, it's pretty tough there. So yeah, it's not it's a pretty technical track right now, and one that's very difficult to get right.
And that puts the importance on qualifying, doesn't it?
Yeah, last year it didn't really matter, right? We had a drive-through after the first start and, kind of found our way back through with strategy and, generally we just had good speed. So, anything can be optional in the IndyCar race and, I'm sure tomorrow may be similar to last year. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, we know you'll be ready. Good luck.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Scott Dixon here in his pit.
Good stuff. 8 caution periods 1 year ago, by the way, tied the record set back in 2001. Davey, back to our point before we heard from drivers, that probably no more important session over the course of the weekend than that final warm-up on race day.
Yeah, because it's all about the race, right? I mean, these drivers want to be on the pole. These teams want to get the poles. But as Scott said, just right there, in IndyCar racing, you can win from anywhere. Things can go your way. He did it with the drive-through penalty last year. So, but in the day, they're focused right now on getting on this pole. And then tomorrow, the final warm-up, they'll decide they're going to be able to run the alternate tires, see what kind of drag they have, and then compared to the alternate, see what kind of speed they gain or lose. And I think, one thing, they're right. It is cool here. I mean, if it's really hot, the sun is out today where it wasn't much yesterday, but it's fairly cool temperatures, and that could help the tire drag as well.
2:15 local time, 5:15 Eastern for IndyCar qualifying. Don't forget, coming up at 12:20 local time, 3:20 Eastern. Indy Next, race number 1. We'll see if anybody has anything at all for Louis Foster. For the whole gang, this is Mark James saying so long for now for the Firestone Grand Prix of Monterey.
Thanks very much to IndyCar Radio, and thanks to everybody tuning in. We'll be back then in 3 hours' time exactly for qualifying from Laguna Seca. Take care. Bye-bye.